radical pro-abortion group bullies pro-life group at George Washington University, spitting on people and invoking the name of Satan. Well, we always knew what they were all about, and now we know exactly who it is they serve. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Dr. Duke Show, that one and only program that keeps you educated on the literal lunacy that impacts K-12 classrooms and college campuses around this world of ours. Today, we're discussing a so-called Catholic university in Seattle that is under fire for removing Planned Parenthood from their website. The response of the Catholic schools is hilarious. Plus, California's own governor, Pierre Delecto, lookalike, Gavin Newsom, signs a law requiring all colleges to provide free abortions to students. But we start at George Washington University, where a pro-life group was recently under siege by an angry mob of pro-abort protesters. Recently, the group called TFP Student Action set up a very small pro-life demonstration with brochures and bagpipes at GWU in the nation's capital. Almost immediately, they were attacked, threatened, and assaulted by pro-abortion activists who used social media to turn dozens and dozens and dozens of activists out in the street. They found themselves surrounded. One angry activist argued that, quote, "Yep, it's still a baby inside, but I have every single right to effing decide what I do with my own effing body." Maybe a little too much effing is what got her in this problem to begin with. Others demanded that TFP Student Action had no right to be on campus, but most interestingly, right, we have we find out who these pro-abort activists serve. Katie, and who would that be?
Oh, it's Satan.
Satan.
Why
right?
wouldn't they?
Let me do my best Sailor Life. Satan.
Oh my.
Remember that? Was that the who was that called? The church lady, right? Could it be Satan?
Oh man, that's taking it back. Yeah. So the one pro-abort actually shouted, "Hail Satan!"
Hail Satan.
And a male student claimed that he eats baby lungs for breakfast. This is what's happening on our college campuses. They've ramped it up to a point so high now that they are hailing Satan and claiming they eat baby lungs.
And what's really disturbing about this is the fact that this is not just simply a protest for abortion rights. This is not irrational. This is why we're better than you. If you believe what you believe abortion is a woman's right, you could roll out feminist talking points, you can talk about bodily autonomy, but these activists don't do it. And what they're doing now, and I blame the schools for this, and I blame George Washington University, I blame American colleges for this. They are only teaching their kids there's one side to these progressive issues. There's no way you can argue against global warming in good faith, so therefore anybody who opposes global warming or doesn't believe in it is now a Nazi and should be thrown in jail. There's only one possible answer to the abortion issue. That means women should be able to abort their babies at any time. If you disagree, you are anti-female, you are a misogynist. Universities refuse to provide multiple perspective for kids, and this is what you get.
It's better to let 1,000 abortions occur, to let however many abortions occur that need to happen in favor of helping the already alive small children that are going to die because of a lack of vaccines, a lack of health care, a lack of shelter.
This is just juvenile baiting. This is childishness. You have a serious group of people on one side, and you've got benighted children on the other.
And the thing is, when you have all these protests, you know exactly what they're going to come out and do. They're going to come out with their posters that have misspelled words on it because they can't spell. They are going to do their usual chants. In this case, it was, hey, hey, ho, ho, pro-lifers have got to go, because that's all they can do. They just replace it. But they are continuing to amp it up a little bit with this Hail Satan and the spitting and now twerking to abort babies.
And what's really
somehow is that's what they're doing, is ramping it up, but they're not making any points whatsoever because they can't have a rational discussion. They can't debate any points, so they're going to make it as obscene as they possibly can.
And rather than defend the Christian students' right to be there, rather than have the police actually address in a serious way the violent protests and the attacks. These kids were jostled. They were spit on, literally spit on. The cops simply, after trying to tell the protesters on a college campus to back down, the protesters did not back down and doubled down on their threats. At which point, rather than arrest them, rather than use a show of force to protect the pro-life advocates, what they did is they escorted the pro-life advocates off campus and made sure they got safely to their cars. They participated, whether they know it or not, in abetting the kind of behavior that does this. And no condemnation information from the college. This is you said it exactly right, Katie. This is on the one side an attempt to have a serious discussion. On the other side, it is catcalls, it is spitting, it is twerking, it is screaming. These are not university-worthy students. This is not a university-worthy argument. And these universities that refuse to protect the right of rational people to disagree aren't rational universities. They should not get any federal funding. Don Trump, hey Don, big boy, you had said that to the degree that universities, you signed an executive order, to the degree that universities, right down the road from you, Donnie boy, you signed an executive order that said if colleges do not promote the right to dissent, did not promote the right for free speech, you would pull their funding. President Trump, stop now and everything else you're doing and find a way to pull some of their federal funding. That will, I guarantee you, the spineless administrators at GWU will definitely think twice about allowing this stuff if you pull their precious money.
Well, and Planned Parenthood should get all its money pulled as well, but at least it's been pulled from a website at a Catholic university out in Seattle, of all places. Seattle University President, Father Stephen V. Sundberg. He's defending his decision to remove Planned Parenthood as listed as a student resource on the university's College of Arts and Sciences Advising Center website. And so he said he was asked to do so by a national pro-life group, and he said this decision to do so was also following a long-standing university policy, which he states is all university policies, practices, and procedures are administered in a manner consistent with Seattle University's Catholic and Jesuit identity and character.
And to me, the word Jesuit stands out. We've got a lunatic Jesuit pope who's really a pagan. You have had a long history in the Roman Catholic Church of Jesuit apostasy, basically, culminating in this social justice neo-Marxist pope. But the fact that Father Sundberg is a Jesuit is pretty remarkable. Ad majorem Dei gloriam, indeed, sir. Thank you for actually at a Catholic university standing by Catholic belief. And of course, the response from these so-called Catholic kids attending a Catholic school by choice. Last I checked, this was not the 14th century. There is no Inquisition going on, 15th century. No one is dragging these kids and forcing them into Catholic universities. But predictably, the Catholic students didn't react like you would expect Catholic kids to.
Well, and even worse, it was more so the responses from the professors.
Oh,
They're the ones leading the charge on this because half the time the kids don't know what's going on. But the big backlash came from the director of the Women and Gender Studies program, Teresa Ehrenfeit. What a name, Ehrenfeit. She said, I know a lot of Catholics that are pro-choice, so for Father Sundberg to come down on this the way he has aligns him with the fringe, not the mainstream.
Let's understand what this is typical women's studies professor logic. The Roman Catholic Church, who controls and dictates the policy of this school, the Roman Catholic Church doctrine, that even a Jesuit priest here is willing to enforce, is adamantly pro-life. And she turns around and says, I know some Catholics who are pro-life. That would be like me saying, well, the federal government controls federal prisons, but I know some federal employees who are all about legalized murder, right? So that puts the federal government on the fringe in arresting murderers. This is how stupid this is. But this is what passes for academic thought, particularly in the women's studies crowd.
And then with that crowd, a collective statement came out of the department with its faculty and staff to its students. Mm-hmm. They gave the message that Planned Parenthood is essential to the livelihoods of people of all genders, classes, and races.
Right. So, in other words, your Catholicism is the problem. The Catholicism of the school, the Catholic Church's position on this, Father Sundberg's position on this is the problem. And you ask yourselves, first of all, rather than acknowledge the relative tolerance that strictly Roman Catholic schools allow lunatic women's studies courses like this to go. Roman Catholic schools like Notre Dame, Georgetown, University of Seattle, they allow radical anti-Catholic left-wing professors like this to teach at their school. Not content that the progressives have a voice on Catholic colleges where Catholics don't really have a voice on traditional public universities, rather than be content with that, they further have to colonize by trying to argue that the very Roman Catholic broad-mindedness that allows their left-wing lunacy on campus is actually proof that the school itself and the Catholic values are the problem, not their extremism.
Yeah, so to combat their problem, they are protesting by putting Planned Parenthood logos on their doors. It's going to solve so much. But the statement they actually issued it's telling of who they are. They say some of us, faculty and staff, relied almost exclusively on Planned Parenthood for all of our women's healthcare needs. Some of us while undergraduate students here at SU, some from poorer families, or some simply struggling in grad school to make ends meet. Without Planned Parenthood, we would not have had access to women's health treatment during our college years.
Yeah, and this is the cop-out, right? That even though they're the biggest abortion provider in the country, with our taxpayer dollars, even though we're paying them $500-600 million a year, a private company who then spends millions and millions of that money our taxpayers gave them without a voice on advocating for radical progressive politicians who want more abortion, that's still not enough for them.
But it wasn't just the faculty or staff. There was a lot of comments that got put out. And what was interesting is the student newspaper, The Spectator, actually at the end of their story said that they didn't include any comments in their story or tweets in support of the university's decision, in support of Father Sundberg, because they couldn't find any. Father Sundberg did provide a written statement, but he refused to be interviewed.
But we have one really pathetic,
interesting alumna
who wrote in protesting this. Go ahead and read that for the audience.
For the first time since graduating, I am embarrassed to say I am an SU alum. Empowering leaders for a just and humane world does not, in my view, include preventing students from easily accessing information about healthcare from your website. I proudly sent my daughter to SU, trusting that it was an institution that looked beyond the dogma of religion, Catholic University, to a belief in social justice for all people, stigmatizing Planned Parenthood, an organization whose work benefits women, people of color, people living in poverty, the LGBTQ plus community, rural communities, and SU students, is shameful. I eagerly await a response from the school and hope the situation takes a sharp turn toward realignment with our shared vision of a just and humane world.
And leave that there for a moment.
Oh, Jenna.
You hit the sentence perfectly, right? That for her, the real religion of Seattle University Catholic School is not Catholicism. It is social justice. I can't believe, she says, that my Catholic school is actually choosing Catholic doctrine over progressive anti-Christian social justice theory. This is the kind of entitlement that these idiots get. Again, you cannot go on to a public university as a Catholic and demand all of these rights and privileges. There's no Catholic-driven Catholic studies programs on secular public universities. They would never allow you to do it. But again, these broad-minded, maybe too broad-minded, hint, Christian colleges allow this garbage on campus, and then that garbage immediately seeks to colonize them and deconstruct it. So again, Jenna, you need to grow up a little bit, right? No gratitude, no humility, no recognition that the greatest social justice warrior in the history of the world was Christ. And Christ himself was a big proponent of individuals, not collectives.
Well, moving a little bit south, down to California. We've previously talked about this, at the time a bill had passed and it was awaiting Governor Newsom's signature, and now he's actually signed it, saying that the University of California and the California State Universities must provide students with free chemical abortions. It was Senate Bill 24, or it's called the College Student Right to Access Act, and it's going to go into effect in 2023. Governor Newsom said in a news release, as other states and the federal government go backward, restricting reproductive freedom, in California, we're moving forward, expanding access and reaffirming a woman's right to choose. We're removing barriers to reproductive health, increasing access on college campuses, and using technology to modernize how patients interact with provider.
Where is the argument that religious freedom still does matter? Gavin Newsom is kind of a dangerous fella. I mean, he is in a state like California where pretty much any opposition politically has been swept away. I mean, it's completely unilateral. This is what you're going to get. And the idea that free abortions, right, becomes, and I mean, how many times have we pointed this out? How successful the left has been in making the radical aborting of babies, even late term, even up into the moment of birth, even letting botched aborted babies who live die. That now is considered healthcare. Explain to me how a botched abortion, explain to me how a baby that is mangled but lives, allowing it to live once it's outside of the mother's body, explain to me how that's healthcare for anybody.
It's not, but Senator Connie Leyva, the one who actually introduced the bill, she kind of talks to your point, because we've gone from obviously abortion being atrocious to, well, okay, if we're going to have it, make it, remember, safe, legal, and rare, to now her comment, the one who introduced this bill, talking about how by ensuring that abortion care is available on campus, college students will not have to choose between delaying important medical care or having to travel long distances or miss classes or work. We can't even value a life at the fact that we would have to decide, well, do I abort my baby or I have a midterm? Which one should I do now?
And what gets me about this is the idea that you would be responsible before the baby is conceived, right? That is a burden we can't lay on women. The idea that we would ask women to, and men for that matter, to be a little more chaste, a little more sober, a little more proactive, that we would ask couples having sexual relationships to be a little bit more cautious. That's a moral burden that we dare not ask parents, we dare not ask young women to think carefully about their sex lives and to behave morally and responsibly. No. But murdering babies, no questions asked, is a moral right.
And Campus Reform did a good job. They went actually out to UC Santa Barbara to talk about this with some students, asking specifically about SB 24. And I mean, when they asked, who should pay for these abortions, it was quite interesting because you had a split, which I didn't see coming. You can guess that, yes, who they think should pay for abortions, but interestingly enough, the females were the ones who think the money should actually be going to other things than the abortions. It was the males who had some interesting things to say.
Do you think the university should be paying for abortions?
I do think the university should pay for abortions. I think it's really helpful.
What if students don't want their money going towards abortion?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things on campus people don't necessarily want their money going towards, like various fees and stuff. I don't see how that would be that much different.
If students don't want their money to go towards abortion, well, I think it's helpful overall because it's a part of healthcare, and I think it's a really popular opinion on this campus that money should be used for healthcare, and women have the right to choose an abortion if they want one.
Yeah, I think our money should go towards something a little bit more useful.
I think that universities should be predominantly nonpartisan, and the issue of abortion is extremely controversial in itself.
So, isn't it ironic? If a man gets a woman pregnant in California, he's going to pay for that baby the rest of his life if she decides to have it. But if a man gets a girl pregnant in California and she wants an abortion, the men are quick to say, make the school pay for it. Welcome. Congratulations, feminism. You've made men even piggier than they piggier were before. Well done.
All right, that'll wrap up our Wednesday. Don't forget to share this episode and subscribe to the Free Audio Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. Visit drdukeshow.com, subscribe for free, and then leave us a 5-star review so we can help grow the show.
And that does it for us today. If you like the show, do please consider supporting it by signing up for the Patriot Club. For just $25 a month, you get to be a Patriot, and we'll send you stuff too. Visit thedrdukeshow.com to get started. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time with an always extraordinary, never disappointing, always insightful episode of The Dr. Duke Show. For Freedom Project, I am the aforesaid Dr. Duke. She's Katie. And until tomorrow, I want you to please stay educated, my friends.